Bună ziua! Hello everyone and welcome to the town hall of the Moldovan-American Convention. 10 years ago, Moldovan diaspora, still young and fragile, decided to meet here in Washington, D.C. for the first edition of the Moldovan-American Convention. We're still young, but we decided that together we can make a difference. From New York to Sacramento, from Chicago to Miami, to Seattle, to Philadelphia, to Asheville. Sorry, we decided that we can make Moldovan-American diaspora stronger. A year later, the Canadian Moldovan diaspora joined us from Montreal to Toronto to Edmonton, and we are working together since. Today, we are very excited to celebrate the 10th edition of the convention and are honored to be joined by distinguished guests, partners, and friends. It is my honor to introduce to you the Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Moldova, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Integration, Mr. Mihai Popșoi. Deputy Prime Minister, please join us on stage for opening remarks. You're right there. I was looking for you.
Hello, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to meet all of you. And great thanks to Madam Dragolin for spearheading this effort for the 10th year now. It's truly remarkable. We are known back home as a small country with a big heart, and we are showing this big heart by welcoming Ukrainian refugees, but our diaspora, and you, all of you, are showing your great heart by organizing such wonderful events that make Moldova's name sound respected in the United States. You are making a name for yourself by being contributors in your own community, but also contributing to the image of your country. So this support that you are providing to the Moldovan-American Convention is truly invaluable to the bilateral relations between the United States and the Republic of Moldova, but also for building that good image of our country in the United States. So I'd like to commend every one of you for supporting this effort and the support that we've received from our partners, which is a big country with an even bigger heart. The Republic of Moldova is there for our friends in Ukraine, and we also appreciate the support of our diaspora for our citizens back home. The stronger we are, the more united we are in these challenging times, the more we'll be able to resist all the challenges and all the problems that come our way. So on behalf of Moldovans back home, on behalf of the government of the Republic of Moldova, of the Parliament, of President Maia Sandu, I'd like to thank every single one of you for your civic participation, for your heart still being at home and wishing to contribute to the Republic of Moldova. And it's truly remarkable that we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of this wonderful undertaking that unites all of us, despite being some of us further away from home. But this unity, this solidarity is truly remarkable. So I'd like to commend you for your effort and your investment into the good image of the Republic of Moldova and for the peace and stability back home. Thank you for this effort, and I look forward to yet another great Moldovan-American Convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Development partners play a pivotal role in Moldova's progress, contributing to the economic, social, and human development within Moldovan society by providing financial, technical, and humanitarian support. Today, we are honored to be joined by the administrator of the Agency U.S. Agency of International Development, Mrs. Samantha Power, Administrator. Please join us on stage. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It is really, really wonderful to be here. And congratulations on the 10th anniversary of the convention. Elena, as founder and chairperson, you have been absolutely instrumental in guiding the diaspora to support Moldova's development, which lately has been meteoric. It really, really is a pace of economic and political development that I can say with my global vantage point is very, very unusual. It's exceptional. I also want to thank the Deputy Prime Minister, Popshoyi, who this is my second appearance with today. Two of what I'm sure will be many, because we certainly in the Biden administration, as DFC CEO Scott Nathan will also attest, we are always interested in lending whatever political support or platforms we can to giving Moldovan leaders the chance to tell their story, and you tell it so well, and it's a hell of a story to tell. Really grateful for you being here and helping deepen the connections between the government and the diaspora, which are already very rich. Thanks for everyone who has flown in here into the Thomas Jefferson Library of Congress building. There is, as is often the case in libraries, an interesting story about Thomas Jefferson, the Library of Congress, and Moldova. Who knew? 210 years ago, the Library of Congress was destroyed in a fire, along with most of its books. So Thomas Jefferson sold his collection of nearly 7,000 books to the US government to restart the library, including one written by the Moldovan, Dmitri Cantemir, who was also a historian, a philosopher, a composer, and a linguist. Cantemir wrote the first substantial history of the Ottoman Empire in any European language that was the go-to text on the subject, as many of you know, for a century. Fast forward to today, and right now the Library of Congress has more than 12,000 volumes on Moldova alone, from early histories exploring the Principality of Moldavia to collections of Moldovan literature, and it is a true testament to the reach and the power of Moldovan culture, its history, and its heritage, a heritage that you are doing so much to protect, and an independent spirit that so many of you are doing so much to nurture. So I think we've come to the right place. We are, in the present, committed to supporting the Moldovan people as they chart their own future. Moldova is critical to its own regions, the broader regions' development, its peace, its security. And we, the United States, view Moldova as a really important long-term partner for us. USAID has supported Moldova since the very beginning of its independence from the Soviet Union. Since 1992, we have invested more than $1 billion in Moldova, and we are continuing that support today at what is a critical inflection point for the people of Moldova. As you all in this room know, and indeed thanks to many of your efforts, Moldova is at a moment of transformation. Today, the Moldovan people are strengthening their democracy, building their security and independence of their energy supply, and driving economic growth and investment that benefit all Moldovans. Again, with a focus not just on economic growth, but on inclusive economic growth, which has not always been the area of emphasis. And is doing all this even as, unfortunately, the Kremlin is doing everything in its power, everything possible really, to try to derail many of these ambitions. So what I'm going to just use the brief time I have left doing is describing a little bit about the work that USAID is doing in Moldova and with Moldovans, in the hopes that, as I describe it, you will see a role for yourselves somehow, or people you know, in connecting with us and connecting with the work that we do, because this is an all hands on deck moment for Moldova. So first, I just talk about core democratic strengthening. Some of you may know that Moldova is a part of a flagship initiative for President Biden and for me personally, which is called the Democracy Delivers Initiative. And this is a global effort, but that handpicks specific countries where there are significant reform efforts underway. Basically, where there are democratization openings, reform openings, bright spots for democracy in a world that is backsliding in really profound ways when it comes to democratic progress. So we have looked to find where in the world are there countries where leaders are trying to enact democratic reform, root out corruption, and expand human rights rather than curtail human rights. And when these inspiring windows of opportunity arise, our goal is to open them further and to have whatever the political space is that a leader has to do hard things, to try to have that last longer, or that space to be larger. And so we come together with our partners and we try to surge catalytic support mainly, resources. We try to help brave reformers as they work to deliver economically, specifically, because that's where the rubber meets the road for citizens. And Moldova is one of the countries that we chose very early on. It was clear that this reform effort was serious and that it had an awful lot of headwind coming at it that was trying to get in the way. So when it comes to democratic strengthening, we have supported independent media, which in turn is holding the current government accountable. So even though we appear often with the government, we are supporting the checks and balances as well on the government. We are working to help citizens get access to more credible information. Obviously, citizens and government alike are being bombarded with misinformation. We have trained more than 16,000 students in media literacy since 2017, equipping them with the skills to evaluate the reliability and objectivity of the information they are receiving. And this is really great. We are already seeing results of these investments in the media sector and in media literacy. On the Reporters Without Borders World Press Freedom Index, Moldova has moved from a rank of 55 out of 179 countries a decade ago to now the rank of 28. And under the leadership of President Sandu, who I've met many times, as I know so has Scott, including my 2 trips to Moldova as USAID administrator, where I got to sample Moldovan wine, which I will never forget and may come back to here in my remarks. Moldova has recently led a series of really important reforms to try to bring it closer to EU membership. And so these are democratic reforms. Fulfilling EU accession requirements, it has to be clear, is no easy task for any country, as many of those countries who have been in the queue and trying to fulfill all the various chapters can attest. But the government of Moldova is meeting this challenge, already fulfilling 7 of 9 EU Commission requirements necessary for official accession negotiations. Last December, as you well know, the European Council agreed to formally open those negotiations with Moldova, a testament to the transformational work that public servants, entrepreneurs, and citizens are undertaking to advance the country's progress. The second area of really important collaboration between USAID and the US government and Moldova is in helping the country build its energy security and independence, which of course is necessary. It's also a significant vulnerability. It is well known that historically Moldova has been almost completely reliant on Russia for its energy needs, a dependence that has become a tool for malign influence, and indeed what you might call economic blackmail. And that has come to a head really in the wake of Putin's brutal full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So we helped Moldova to stand up its newly reconstituted Ministry of Energy just last year. and have since worked with this ministry, Energocom, and other international donors to offset the costs of more expensive energy during high energy use times, like, of course, winter, the tough Moldovan winter. Last year, and this is really extraordinary, the US Congress approved $300 million to help Moldovans improve domestic electric power generation and energy connections with Europe. And why is this extraordinary? It's extraordinary. It's a large sum of resources at a difficult budget time. But really, it speaks to actually how much better known Moldova and its story is becoming in Washington, up on Capitol Hill, and more broadly in the United States. And you all have a role to play here. I remember, Ambassador, when I was first traveling to Moldova, and I was asking, how many CODELs have been to Moldova recently? The answer was not a very encouraging one, because I was thinking to myself, okay, we have to build a constituency on Capitol Hill. Well, how many members of Congress have tasted the wine? How many have seen the industry of the people, or the determination, of citizens to forge a democratic and a European path for themselves? And once you feel it up close, as you know, as Moldovan-Americans, it's an entirely different commitment. That is changing. More and more, we have been able to encourage members of Congress and others, or their staff, because that matters sometimes almost as much, to stop into Moldova and to see for themselves what this little country that could is up to. In just a year, Moldova is rapidly expanding its connections to the European energy grids and has transitioned 100% of the gas needs on the right bank of the Dnistru River to alternative sources like solar and natural gas. Now the Moldovan people are on the way to accessing energy when they need to, without fear of blackmail or without fear of the lights going off. Lastly, I would just say USAID is working with the Moldovan government to revitalize the economy, particularly focusing on key sectors. We are supporting entrepreneurs and business people to diversify the economy by building up exports like wine, textiles, and stone fruits. These efforts have been fruitful. USAID has supported farmers in getting the equipment and the certifications that they need to get produce on a scale and at a guaranteed quality that international buyers are seeking. And that has been the key matchmaking, is working on the ground in Moldova with these sectors to make sure that they are actually meeting the tastes and the needs and the actual regulatory requirements of the export markets that farmers and other businesses seek to reach. Since Moldova's plum exports, as part of this initiative, nearly doubled from 2022 to 2023, and it has now become the largest exporter of plums in the Northern Hemisphere, the country has, and the third largest in the world. Last year, grape exports also doubled, while sweet cherry exports increased fivefold. So these are real results, and again, a tribute above all to Moldovan determination. We are also supporting the Moldovan people's efforts to bolster the economy through tech advances. Since your last conference in Chicago, USAID facilitated a $1 million commitment from Google to support cyber resilience in Moldova, which is so important to all else, including the upcoming opening of the new Cyber Academy in the capital, which is going to train the next generation of Moldova's cybersecurity experts. It's going to spearhead research and innovation and shore up the country's civilian cyber defenses. I'm glad to share that just a week ago, USAID also facilitated a partnership with the global technology company Cisco to support the Cyber Academy by offering the software, analytics, and tech equipment it needs at a nearly 70% discount. We are excited to see what the future holds in store for Moldova, particularly with you, the diaspora community, at the ready to support Moldova's progress. As you are here to discuss, and I won't say much about this as I close, but there are so many different ways for you to get involved. You can invest and expand your businesses in Moldova, as I know many of you here today have done or are trying to do. You'll hear again more from DFC CEO Scott Nathan about how we can work together to attract the private sector to invest more in Moldova. You can choose to contribute your skills and knowledge as public servants in Moldova, as I know several of you here today have done, and this, I will say, I find incredibly inspiring. Special shout out to Elena's daughter, Veronica, who has become the chief prosecutor in the main anti-corruption body in Moldova. Such an important job in not only spearheading democratic progress, but also paving the way for investors to feel more excited about being in Moldova. When they know that corruption is being tackled, it's an entirely different conversation. You can advocate for important policy changes in Moldova and here in the United States, particularly as our own U.S. Congress is voting tomorrow, just steps from here, on critical national security legislation that will determine whether or not we can continue to give our Ukrainian partners the assistance they need to stand up to Putin's aggression, which threatens, of course, the entire region. You can directly contribute your skills and resources through organizations like D-Hub and Moldova Aid, and I want to congratulate you all on creating an official NGO that can help channel the extraordinary potential of the diaspora community to support Moldova. Somebody likes this shout out here, so I'm glad about that. And very last thing I'll say, but really in some ways the most fundamental, you can vote. I don't know if you've heard, but there's an important election coming up this fall, and not only the American presidential election, there's a major important election happening in Moldova in October of this year. Moldova, for the first time in its history, is accepting mail-in votes from the United States and Canada as it gears up for a substantial increase in overseas votes. Having had some discussions today about this is not going to be easy. Word of mouth is going to be absolutely critical. Everyone, you will need to find 10 friends who themselves find 10 friends, and so on and so on. So using your voice to get out the vote, this is an election, honestly, that is going to decide whether this dramatic transformation continues, whether it accelerates and deepens, or whether it is stopped in its tracks. This election matters so very much. I urge you to connect with your relatives, your friends, and your neighbors in Moldova as well to get out the vote there. We are standing ready to assist you. We have colleagues at our mission from Moldova who are here today to engage with you. If you have an idea, no idea is too crazy. You'd be amazed what we've been managed to hatch together from what started as a wild and crazy idea. But you have the resources, you have the knowledge, you have the intellectual capital. We would love to work with you and, of course, the government to help you deploy all of those resources to great effect in a country that is doing really remarkable things. So thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation is finding solutions to the most critical challenges the developing world is facing today. We are honored to have the DFC CEO, Scott Nathan, joining us. Please join us on stage. Thank you.
Well, it's great to be here. Elena, thank you for the introduction. It's terrific to be able to address the convention. And I guess I should start out by acknowledging the vice chair of our board at DFC, my good friend and colleague Samantha Power. Now, my remarks end up paralleling in many ways her remarks, but I think that's a testament to the close working relationship between our two organizations. I'm also going to talk about economic development, energy independence, about the partnership between our countries, and I even have a wine story as well. So that's a testament to our close relationship. Deputy Prime Minister, it's great to be here with you. Ambassador, it's terrific to see you again twice this week. And our ambassador in Moldova, Kent Logsden, it's great to see you as well. But really, it's my honor to be able to address the Moldovan-American Convention. I had the opportunity to visit Moldova back in January, just a few months ago. And, it was an opportunity for me to highlight the partnership between our two countries and all that we've achieved, to see the firsthand impact that working together has, the difference that has made. But it wasn't my first visit to Moldova. Back in the 1990s, I visited Chisinau when I was in the private sector. That was a very different time. It was just a few years after independence, and on my recent visit, to be able to represent the United States government, it was really amazing to see all the progress that's been made. There's still a lot of work to be done, of course, but in the span of 3 decades, the really incredible progress that's been made. So for more than 30 years, the United States has partnered with the Moldovan people and government to address challenges facing the country and build on a democratic, prosperous, and secure future for the country. In that time, Moldova, as Samantha mentioned, has really emerged, and especially quite recently, as a true bright spot for democracy in Eastern Europe. And the US government really values our partnership and is looking to continue deepening our ties in the years to come. Moldova is on the path to lasting reform, tackling issues around economic stagnation, corruption, as Samantha mentioned, energy insecurity, which is an issue globally that keeps economic growth down, and of course malign influence from outside the country that has also been a challenge for economic growth. No doubt things changed dramatically on February 24th, 2022, just over 2 years ago, when Russia launched its full-scale invasion, its latest phase of aggression against Ukraine and its people. And I'd say outside of Ukraine itself, there's probably no country more adversely affected by this Russian aggression in Ukraine than Moldova. Of course, that was felt in the economy, so in that first year, the GDP of Moldova fell, inflation became a problem. Russia continued its direct and indirect efforts to destabilize the Moldovan economy and government. And Moldova has had to rise to face these challenges head on. It's done so admirably, and the economy has begun to rebound with renewed focus on access to Western markets. Samantha talked about that and the importance of that in the agribusiness sector, making sure that there are access to markets for the outputs from Moldova. We've seen that inflation has fallen and economic growth has begun to return. Of course, Moldova has doubled down on building on its national defense, and the United States stands ready to support that. Moldova has been steadfast and vocal supporter of Ukraine, welcoming 1 million refugees who have gone through the country fleeing the conflict. And the United States, of course, appreciates the sacrifice of the Moldovan people and the burden that this has placed on them. That's been reflected in increased cooperation on the military front and financial support over the last 2 years. Government-to-government assistance is necessary, but to truly unlock the power of any economy, and this is what my agency is really about, one needs to leverage private capital. The agency I oversee, the United States International Development Finance Corporation, was created just to address exactly this sort of challenge. Our job is to work with the private sector to advance economic development in line with U.S. foreign policy objectives. We offer a variety of tools to our clients, whether that's debt financing, equity investments, loan guarantees, technical assistance, or political risk insurance. Our goal is to finance high standard, quality projects that align with our values and make local impact in a transparent and inclusive way that respects high labor and environmental standards. In Moldova, we have found the ability to make just these sort of investments. DFC has recently focused on a number of opportunities to work with the private sector to boost the Moldovan economy. I visited Chisinau in January to give more visibility, to highlight some of these investments. We've made a total of a little more than $400 million of investments in Moldova. And one of the things that we're very focused on is exploring more opportunities to work together to support the private sector and make a difference for the Moldovan economy. During my visit, I had a chance to visit with the Prime Minister and the President to discuss our interest in pursuing investments in priority sectors like renewable energy, small business support, digital infrastructure, and agriculture. I also met with Horizon Capital, who I understand is co-hosted one of this morning's sessions to evaluate the progress on the $25 million investment we've made with them to support high-tech businesses both in Moldova and Ukraine. Finally, I had the chance to go out to dinner and sample way too many different types of Moldovan red wine with Ambassador Lagston, but like Samantha, that was a highlight of my trip. I actually returned home with a case of wine that Kent helped select that I've been able to share with friends and family. It also helped make a dent in the balance of trade because I was surprised it's not cheap, the Moldovan wine, but it's very high quality. So the Development Finance Corporation is a relatively new agency. Our predecessor, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, has been involved in Moldova for a long time. And that has especially been focused on supporting small business. When I was in Moldova, we had the chance to celebrate our relationship with MAB, Agro-Ind-Bank of Moldova. We have a loan portfolio with them that has gone to supporting entrepreneurs, micro, small, and medium enterprises that work in manufacturing, wine production, and the creative sector. Our largest commitment in Moldova, however, like the work of USAID, has been focused on energy security. I mentioned that at the beginning. Energy security is critical to the growth of any economy, and it's obviously been a challenge for Moldova, particularly over the last 2 years with Russia's expanded aggression against Ukraine. We can't allow any nation to weaponize access to energy. That's bad for economic growth, that's bad for people, it's completely unfair, and something that we need to fight against. And so with the support of the international community, it's really quite impressive what Moldova has been able to achieve in diversifying, first, the gas supply, so that it's no longer dependent on Gazprom for its gas supply. Since February of 2022, Moldova has accelerated its plans to interconnect with the grid, as Samantha mentioned, the grid in Europe. And this is a significant achievement for Moldova. But at DFC, what we're most proud of is the $400 million in political risk insurance that we provided to our partners who participated in the gas tenders to help diversify away from Gazprom gas, and the success that that's achieved in Moldova in terms of breaking that grip is really impressive and something very much worth celebrating. We're excited by what we've accomplished in partnering with Moldova and the private sector, but we want to do more, and we want to work with any of you who have interesting projects for us. Our goal is to get capital to the private sector to expand business, keep people employed, and grow the economy. I had the chance to meet Viktor Parlikov, the energy minister of Moldova, earlier this week, and we talked a lot about opportunities in the energy sector, but we want to go beyond that and work with small and medium enterprises to help grow the economy. So I'll conclude by saying that we're continually working with our interagency partners as well as our partners in Moldova, and I want to call out the American Chamber of Commerce in Chisinau as an important partner as we seek out more opportunities for DFC involvement and investment where we can make a difference. We're open for business in Moldova. That's my final message I want to leave you with, and we remain committed to supporting the Moldovan economy, democracy in Moldova, and freedom. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. As all of you know, these days are very important. I'm very busy here on the Hill and the administration and everywhere in all the institutions. All hands are needed on deck, and that's why some of our guests might have to leave earlier. We're not urging you to leave now, but whenever you feel the need to leave, we want to thank the first panel. So a round of applause and our big thanks for everyone. Thank you. Thank you. It was an honor to have you here. Wow. All hands on deck are needed also in Moldova. That's why we have this title for our next panel. All hands on deck, anchoring Moldova firmly in the West. And it's my honor to invite here the Ambassador of the Republic of Moldova to the US and Mexico, Mr. Viorel Ursu, that will have a conversation and will conduct the Q&A for the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Mihai Povșoi. Please, you can come on stage. You can come here and then both of you on stage.
Hi, I think I know everyone. Just to say, welcome to Washington, and it's been now 20 months that I'm in this position, not that I'm counting, but it's my third MAC, and I'm ready to break a record, though I found out that a colleague of mine, Carolina Peribinos here, she attended 4 MACs. And she was the one also engaged in organizing the first MAC together with Elena Draghelin. What I learned MAC is it's a lot of fun. So especially the last day, I like when people finally relax. But it's also about building bridges between government in Moldova, government administration in the US, and the diaspora. And I think that role is really important to bring officials, and thank you for engaging us in this conversation, because it's an opportunity to tell the officials what we do back home, what are our needs, what are our challenges, what are our plans. But it's also an opportunity for diaspora to hold officials to account, how they deliver, what they deliver, where they under-deliver, and also to brainstorm what are the ideas that they might go back home and implement. In the last 2 years, or the 20 months that I've been here, the biggest priorities was to secure our energy independence, and you heard a lot how much support we've been receiving, especially from the US, to get it to the point where we can say that we're not buying anymore the Russian gas and we are able to get on the European markets, and boosting our security, overall security and defense. And again, this is a focus of our cooperation, has been with the US administration for the last 2 years. And again, we received a lot of the support. But looking forward, and especially in my functions for the next 2 years, we are very grateful for the assistance that we are receiving. A lot of it these are grants that it's quite exceptional. But you also cannot build a sustainable economic development just on grants. And I think there is one ingredient that we really need to boost, and these are the investments. And this will be the focus of our relationship. This is a lot what we've been also addressing and discussing, including with the USAID and the DFC today. As you just heard, Minister of Energy Parlikov was here. We're about to announce very soon new tendering, international tendering for renewables. And again, we are looking forward that maybe some of those investors, if they need political risk insurance, that's something that DFC, for instance, can provide. So investment is the new priority we need to focus, and I'm looking forward to the conversations tomorrow, where we'll be discussing that. And the other big task is the elections, and this is also the functions of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the embassies, including his, to make sure that everybody who wants to vote will have the opportunity to vote. And that's the reason that hopefully the Parliament will provide that opportunity also to vote by mail. Yeah, that's it, and I really want to invite Minister on the podium and maybe a few remarks, and then we still have time for a few questions, so be ready. There will be more time tomorrow, but we'll have time also today. Please.
Hello, everyone, again. As our friends from the United States have laid out so eloquently before, the support of the United States and the support of our partners in the European Union has allowed the Republic of Moldova to be now in a position a lot stronger, a lot more resilient than it was 2 years ago. It may be difficult to believe, but this is exactly the case. Moldova is no longer dependent on the energy resources from Gazprom, even though 2-3 years ago it felt like there is this umbilical cord connecting Moldova and Gazprom, and it felt for many of us back home that there is absolutely no other source of energy other than Gazprom. It turns out there is, and it turns out there are plenty. Just the other day, Moldova bought 30 million cubic meters for the first time of American LNG at a lower price than what Gazprom was offering. And in the next few days, we'll be buying a new tranche of gas at a price that is, again, lower than what the Gazprom was offering. And this was possible due to the enormous support of our friends from the United States government, allowing and helping us to diversify our energy supply. We are working now on diversifying our supply of electricity, so we are no longer dependent on the Kuchurgan power plant in the Transnistrian region of Moldova. And we are working on building capacity in our defense sector, in our police, in our intelligence, to make sure that we can combat the threats that come our way. And this has all been possible in an incredibly challenging time, when it felt like the sky was falling, when it felt like the economic situation was destroying our future. But it turns out, despite these enormous challenges, if the society is truly united, if we close our ranks, and we work together, hand in hand, we can achieve remarkable solutions. And that is also true not just in the energy sector. That is also true in the reform of the justice system in Moldova. Yes, the path is difficult. Yes, we would like to see the reforms deliver a lot faster. But these are the sort of transformations that cannot happen overnight. When for 30 years, and quite frankly a lot before, we have had a system where judges and politicians and prosecutors were hand in hand, one hand washing the other, covering for each other's crimes. Now, to reform this system and to induce this sense of integrity-driven public services, be it prosecution, be it judiciary, be it many other services that the government provides. It's very difficult to employ this transformation in a speedy way. But as our friends in Brussels are encouraging us, and quite frankly, as our citizens are demanding, that we make sure that we deliver quality over speed. You know, as a politician, we're quite eager to see results fast because we are judged by our results by our voters. But as a citizen, I resonate with this notion of quality over speed because especially in the justice reform, we cannot afford to under-deliver because the undoing of this reform will be the undoing of our future. No country, not least the Republic of Moldova, can have a sense of future economic stability and prosperity without a properly functioning judiciary. And many of you are prominent people in the business sector. You know full well that where there is clear enforcement of contracts, where you know that you'll receive justice in courts and you won't end up in a bidding contest of who pays more to win, that is not a future that is sustainable when it comes from a business perspective, or quite frankly, for the comfort of average citizen. So this is the fundamental effort and the fundamental commitment that we have now to deliver on justice reform. And yes, it's difficult. Yes, we wish the results would be here faster, but we cannot afford to rush things, to speed things up, with the risk of having this reform turn out like many others that we've had in our country before. Half measures, and more often than not, things that are just form with little function. We cannot afford to engage in those sort of practices that we've had before. So in justice reform, things are progressing. The Supreme Council of Magistracy is vetted. The Supreme Council of Prosecutors, now the vetting is ongoing in the Supreme Court. Yes, it's a difficult process, and you see daily attempts back home to try to undermine the system, to sabotage, to discredit the vetting commission, to discredit important leaders in the justice system, and attacks including on our good friend and a prominent representative of Moldovan diaspora who chose to come back home to work hard to deliver on these promises that we've made to our citizens. But we will not be deterred because we know that the future of Moldova rests on justice reform as much as it rests on the energy security of the country, on informational security of the country, because only those circumstances can create the fertile ground that we so much need for economic development. So my message to you is, first and foremost, thank you for being there for the Republic of Moldova. Thank you for supporting this convention, among other things that I'm sure you are helping. And as Samantha Power just a few minutes ago so eloquently advocated on behalf of the Moldovan government when it comes to the elections in October, it's difficult to outdo the eloquence and the shared sense of importance of this election. But I will try. I have a mandate and a responsibility to do that. Now, as you well know, we're trying to implement for the first time the vote by mail in the Republic of Moldova for the United States and Canada, although there are ideas to expand it to a few other countries, but our capacity currently are quite limited. I personally would rather prefer to focus on fewer countries but deliver quality elections than to spread out and to risk our resources that are very thin. But this will be the opportunity for every single one of you, and for many, many of your friends and colleagues and acquaintances, because nobody will have an excuse now to say that they couldn't vote because it was too difficult, it was too expensive. Now we have this opportunity in place with the vote by mail, and that will be a chance for every single Moldovan in US and Canada to be able to chip into the future of Moldova. I cannot emphasize enough how consequential this election in October is. Not just the presidential election, but also the constitutional referendum on EU accession. The future of our country rests on the outcome of this election, because we've seen not so far ago in our recent history where the country was isolated politically, where our economic outlook was very grim, where we didn't have partners in the international community. Now we have all that, and it's our responsibility to be able to build on that strong foundation. And just like we celebrated recently the 25th anniversary of our partnership with North Carolina, and I see here Congresswoman Ross, a good friend of the Republic of Moldova. This cooperation that we have with North Carolina is truly remarkable. 25 years is a testament to this great partnership, but so is the 10 years of the Moldovan-American Convention. 10 years is a significant period of time, and the commitment that Madam Dragălin has showed to building these ties between the United States and the Republic of Moldova, and to making sure that the Moldovan diaspora, the vibrant Moldovan diaspora in the United States, remains as connected, as involved, as part and parcel of the Moldovan society as it's humanly possible. So I'd like to commend Madam Dragălin for her effort on behalf of the Moldovan people for your generosity, with your time, with your effort. This is an achievement to have such a strong commitment for such a long period of time, and we cannot thank you enough for your generosity and your time. It goes without saying that it's Madam Dragălin and the team. Individuals are, no matter how good leaders they are, without teams, and I should know because we have a political party behind. It's not just myself, Madam President Sandu, or my colleagues. It's every single member that chips in that is important. So truly thank you and the entire team.
This is exactly the time for questions.
Please, Congressman.
Okay.
We'll postpone the questions for a little bit later because, as
Yeah.
I mentioned before,
We will have to
very
leave.
busy on the Hill.
Yeah, we will have to leave a bit early, but maybe tomorrow. Then we'll have.
Tomorrow we're going to have time for more questions. As I mentioned before, very busy times on the Hill, so we have to adjust to what's happening live right now. Very big moment in history. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Ambassador. Just when I thought that I can get more relaxed and I adjusted to the audience and I don't have to be nervous. I am nervous again because we have here very distinguished guests that joined us. We have Congressman Lawler, that is the member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and the co-chair of Congressional Moldova Caucus, and also Congresswoman Deborah Ross, U.S. Congress, co-chair of Congressional Moldova Caucus. I believe, Congressman, or if you want, you can both go on stage and just have the time, how you prefer, please. And it depends on your time.
So you want me to go first? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go first. And I have some prepared remarks, but of course we want to hear from you and any questions you might have of us. So I'm so honored to be with all of you this afternoon for the 10th annual Moldovan-American Convention. And thank you to the organizers of this event and the Embassy of Moldova for graciously hosting us. I'm equally thankful to be working closely with my colleague, Representative Mike Lawler, as the co-chairs of the Congressional Moldova Caucus, working together to strengthen the U.S.-Moldova relationship. As you've heard, and many of you know firsthand, my home state of North Carolina has enjoyed a strong and unwavering bond with Moldova dating back to 1999. Moldova has been paired with North Carolina in the Department of Defense's National Guard State Partnership Program for more than a quarter of a century. We also have several other partnerships with Moldova, and I've met with delegations who are working with our School of Government, working with the medical community, working with the agricultural community, and of course your fabulous ambassador has been to North Carolina several times to represent Moldova. As members of the Congressional Moldova Caucus, my colleagues and I are working diligently to bolster support for the country as it navigates a complex set of challenges. And as you all know, Moldova gained independence in 1991. But since then, it has faced continuous threats, first from the Soviet Union, now from Russia, and the threats have only been exacerbated by Russia's unprovoked, unconscionable invasion of Ukraine more than 2 years ago. Moldova has also faced significant economic challenges, but you are doing so much better. And in 2023, Representative Lawler and I led a letter with support from 11 of our colleagues in the caucus, urging Secretary Blinken and the State Department to continue expressing support for Moldova's EU candidacy. As you know, Moldova applied for EU membership and was granted candidate status in June of 2022. By December of 2023, the European Council decided to open accession negotiations, and this important development is a moment to celebrate. But of course, there's still more work to be done. Now more than ever, the EU represents a shining beacon of democracy in the face of Vladimir Putin's aggression and offers critical support for countries seeking peace and economic security in Europe. I will continue to do all that I can to help Moldova reach EU membership, and I know Representative Lawler is doing exactly the same thing. In order to support Moldova's defense needs, Congressman Lawler and I also proposed an amendment to Congress's annual defense authorization bill that would bolster Moldovan's defense modernization with the assistance of the United States. Today, President Sandu is working tirelessly to ensure Moldova stays on the path of freedom and democracy. With Putin continuing to threaten the peace and democracy in Europe, and Moldova on the front lines of that, the United States has an important responsibility to continue supporting the Sandu administration at this very precarious moment. Safeguarding Moldova's precious democratic institutions is imperative to help secure a more peaceful and prosperous future for the Moldovan people. Please know that I will continue to be your ally in Congress. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the continued discussion.
Well, thank you to my colleague, Deb Ross from North Carolina, my co-chair as part of the Moldova caucus, and it's really been great to work with her to advance the Moldovan-American relationship. And I want to thank Elena Dragolin for organizing and hosting this event and working closely with my staff over the last many months to help secure this location and really put the event together. And so thank you to my staff as well for working with Elena on this. Bună ziua. It's great to be here with all of you. As many of you know, my wife, Doina, is from Moldova. She's here today along with our daughter, Juliana Elena, who is 2 today. Today is her birthday. Micuța frumoșică, Juliana. But it's great to be here with all of you. This, obviously, on a personal level, the relationship between Moldova and America is important. But it's also extremely important from a global and strategic standpoint as well. And when we look at what has happened over the last 2+ years in Eastern Europe with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and what we're seeing in the Middle East with the terrorist attack on Israel and the threats emanating in the Indo-Pacific, the world is in the most precarious place since World War II. And it is critically important that the United States, that Europe, continue to lead the free world, and that we work together to strengthen those relationships. And that's why President Sandu's efforts to get Moldova into the European Union is critical. It's why we, along with our NATO allies, continue to focus our efforts on peace and stability, and from a national security standpoint, military cooperation. You are here at a very unique moment in American history. This is a moment for leadership. It is a moment to show the world that America still has the resolve to lead. And tomorrow we will vote on a supplemental aid package that will provide over $100 billion in aid to Israel, to Ukraine, and to Taiwan. It will include key provisions that will take on our adversaries, from Russia to Iran to China. And so, celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Moldovan-American Convention in Washington, D.C., you are here at a critical juncture. My objective as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, as a member of the Financial Services Committee, has been to focus on the substantive and serious policy issues that are facing the United States, that are facing Western democracy, and how we strengthen the relationships between the U.S. and our allies. And so, providing Ukraine with the lethal aid that they need to defend themselves and to fight back against Russian aggression is critical. My concern has been from the very beginning, if Ukraine falls, Moldova and other former Soviet satellite states will fall with it. And that is unacceptable to me. It's unacceptable to the United States. It's unacceptable to Europe. And I know unacceptable to all of you in this room. And so there's a lot of work to do. Passing this aid package tomorrow is just the beginning. But when you see the threats that are emanating and the coordinated effort between China, Russia, and Iran to undermine and destabilize the free world, this is why we are doing the work that we're doing in Congress. This is why we are focused like a laser on supporting our allies. And I consider Moldova an ally. I consider the relationship between the United States and Moldova of strategic importance, and a relationship that we want to continue to foster and grow economically, from a national security standpoint, from an energy standpoint. I was heartened to hear yesterday when we met with the foreign minister about the purchase of U.S. liquid natural gas, and how we are going to continue to build that relationship. Energy is critical. And if we can isolate Russia and isolate Iran and their illicit energy and oil trade, then we can weaken their economies, we can weaken their militaries, and we can strengthen democracy across the globe. And that, to me, is of critical importance. And I want to thank both of our ambassadors for the great work that they do on behalf of the United States and Moldova, building this relationship and really working cohesively to strengthen the work that we're doing together. So thank you for that. And with that, we're happy to take any questions, comments, or insults anyone may have.
Now I want to see how nervous you are to have the microphone. So please, questions. Anyone? Oh. Your name first and then the question.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Vitaly. I currently reside in Detroit, Michigan. Thanks for being here. I know it's like everybody said, it's really busy. The question I have is, many of us come outside of North Carolina or New York. How can we influence our representatives, be it congressmen, senators, even on the state level? How can we influence the decisions and the votes that go into making decisions like you will be taking one tomorrow? Is it writing letters? Is it calling? I think it would be helpful for everyone here to learn more about this.
So Moldova obviously is a country of roughly 4 million people, half of which reside outside of the country in rough numbers, predominantly in Romania, Italy, Germany. But we have a sizable diaspora here in the United States. And I think Deb and I have tried to work together to raise awareness to many of our colleagues about the importance of Moldova. They're starting to hear about the wine, and which is good. Exactly. But they're getting, especially because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, they're understanding a greater of greater import how Moldova impacts the situation in the region. And so I think that obviously, from our perspective, getting them to understand the importance is key. Deb has a connection because of North Carolina's relationship. I have the connection because, obviously, my wife. But I think what's key is for the Moldovan community in each of these areas, whether it's Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, or any district in the country, to really go meet with your representatives. Reach out to their office, ask for a meeting with their staff, whether here in Washington or in district, and give them some information on Moldova from your perspective, but the importance of the relationship, getting people to understand Transnistria, for instance, I think is important, because a lot of the folks don't necessarily understand that, okay, well, it's a breakaway region of Moldova, or that Russia has forces there, or a lot of my colleagues are wondering, well, why hasn't Russia used that as a launching pad within the war in Ukraine? And frankly, the fact that Moldova has taken in more Ukrainian refugees per capita than anywhere else in the globe, and how grateful we are for Moldova to do that. And so I think there's a lot that can be done. And frankly, in addition, Moldovans and Romanians teaming up, because there is more strength in numbers, and obviously because of the close relationship between the two countries, and the identity with Romania in so many ways, culturally, economically, to really forge a path forward. So the biggest thing is to reach out to your members. You can write to them. You can, reach out to them on social media. You can ask for a meeting with with them or their staff, and really engage them on the issue.
Well, I'll just echo what Congressman Lawler said, but the other thing is Moldova is having a moment internationally right now. And I think it's very important to pair up with Ukrainian groups in your areas. It was kind of funny when we were having our celebration in advance of the 25th anniversary of North Carolina's relationship with Moldova. there were maybe about 200 people from all over North Carolina who came together to talk about their experiences with Moldova, sometimes even like an elementary school teacher who went over to Moldova and stayed there through most of the pandemic was there to talk about her experience. And afterwards, some Ukrainian Americans came up to me, they were there, and they said, boy, how could we get something like this for Ukraine? Now, of course, this was North Carolina where we have this relationship, and this has been cultivated for, more than 2 decades. But you can piggyback on things that are going on with the Ukrainians and educate people about Moldova, educate people about what you have done to help Ukraine. And then I'll kind of give you a little context for some of these international issues. Congressman Lawler and I have dealt with, kind of the both sides of what's going on in Gaza. There are protesters, there are rallies. One thing about every Ukraine rally and every Moldova conference that I've been to, everybody's of the same accord. And elected officials like to go places where they're welcome and they can be educated and they feel like they can make a difference. And you letting these elected officials know they can make a difference for Moldova by getting more money through USAID, by making sure that we provide security assistance, and by making sure that we protect Ukraine. And elected officials always like to get on the bandwagon with people who are grateful, who work hard for themselves, and who invite them to learn about how they can be helpful.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, so I'll be a little bit helper here, with the microphone. Okay.
Hi, my name is Rob Monyak. I'm Deputy CEO of the TransOil Group, which is one of the largest companies in Moldova. It's the large agribusiness. By the way, I did have an opportunity recently to spend some time with the visiting delegation from North Carolina, headed by Secretary of State Marshall. So it's amazing the work they've been able to do. But anyway, my question is about, you touched on Transnistria, and you also mentioned Moldova's having a moment. I was wondering, just both of your thoughts as to whether this moment extends to an opportunity to resolve this 23-year conflict. And if so, what can the United States possibly be doing to encourage the resolution of that conflict?
So I think from the standpoint of the region, obviously getting the situation in Ukraine resolved is of paramount importance. And I think if we can begin to push back on the Russian influence in the region, that is critically important. And ultimately, if there is an opportunity in settling the Russian invasion of Ukraine and getting terms of a negotiated settlement, I think the question is within the rest of the region, how can we take advantage of that moment? I think obviously as Moldova continues down the path of its EU candidacy and getting more westernized in its government, in its economy, in the relationships, and other former Soviet states in the region, I think there's real opportunity to see things grow. I also think part of it is putting a lot more economic pressure on Russia out of this as we work through this. And if we can begin to wean everybody off of Russian gas, if we can get China out of the Iranian oil trade, if we can start to isolate these folks, I think it makes it easier to resolve some of these other conflicts in the area, whether it's with Transnistria or if you're looking at Armenia and Azerbaijan, for instance. the challenges with Russia are that significant, and getting their malign influence out of these regions and out of these areas is critical. So I do think there's opportunity. Do I think it's something that's going to be resolved, in the immediate? No. Do I think, the fact that Transnistria has primarily stayed out of this conflict, I think is a good thing. It's a very good sign. But the fact that Russia has not been able to use Transnistria as a launching pad into Ukraine is a good sign. But, I think until you really have resolution in Ukraine, I think it's hard to get there on that.
I will just add a couple points to all of these points, which I agree with. One is the outcome of the elections coming up are going to be critical. So will be critical. So the stronger that Moldova is democratically, with the support of the vast majority of its people, the weaker Transnistria's influence and Russia's influence will be. And then the second thing, of course, is, being part of the EU. Because once you have that economic security, that economic assistance, that's a real threat to Russia. And, we've seen one of the consequences of the lawless invasion of Ukraine is that NATO grew. And now we need the EU to grow too. And the more that it grows with countries like Moldova, the stronger Europe becomes and more of a bulwark that it is against Russian aggression.
I agree with everything Congresswoman Ross just said. I think that's critical. If you can see Moldova continue down the path of the EU, continue down the path of democratic norms, rooting out the corruption within the government, that's critical. And that, I think, makes it a lot easier ultimately to resolve some of these tensions, because Transnistria at some point is going to want to be part of that.
And I'll just add one little thing. Sorry, I know somebody else. One of the things that North Carolina is doing, and this is something that Secretary of State Marshall has initiated, because she's basically our ambassador to Moldova from North Carolina, is that training of elected officials on how to be better at what they do and how to represent people and how to really foster democracy. And that's going on with the University of North Carolina School of Government. And the more that can be done, not just with the government, but in the economic sphere, in the defense sphere, everywhere. And that's a way other states may be able to help support Moldova.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for being so positive and for your support. The last 2 years, I'm Victoria, I represent the Moldova Project organization. I work in Moldova with the poor families and with the refugees as well. The last 2 years has been a hell for us in all of perspectives of what a war means. But since the war in Gaza started, the things have switched from lots of help that came to Moldova to very little help. So today, I can feel like there is not so much help coming to Moldova, and obviously I understand why. But when we speak about Moldova, that we have so many elderly people and so many poor families, I'm just wondering, how are we supposed to keep going and just rolling the ball? Because it feels like, of course, there's lots of many positive things happening, but it's just working with so many poor people and people who cannot afford to have a life in Moldova. I'm just wondering, how can we survive through these so very challenging times? Just give me your thoughts. How can we survive? Thank you.
Well, first of all, the Moldovan people have so much respect for your ability to resist and your generosity for taking in all of these Ukrainian refugees. And so we have been advocating for increased aid from the United States. I think that that aid, though, has to be multinational, including from Europe, and Europe knows that Moldova is on the line, and from other allies. And you know, we are facing all these things all around the world. I was recently in South Korea. The first thing that people asked was, is the United States going to abandon South Korea because of everything else that's going on? And you know, there's a DMZ, a demilitarized zone in South Korea, and I went there. And the fact that the South Koreans are concerned. So when we're being stretched in all these different ways, the most important thing for us to do is continue to fund people who are part of democracy, freedom, economic security, and that's what we will be voting on tomorrow in a very bipartisan way, and to increase the sphere of people who will contribute. Because the United States, again, we're gonna put a whole lot of money in a whole lot of places tomorrow, but we need to expand our reach. And I will tell you, I'm also co-chair of the Congressional Study Group on Europe, and the pride that you are now seeing from countries like Finland and Sweden to be part of NATO, be part of the solution, the increased defense budgets. Everybody has got to pitch in. And the world hasn't had to see this kind of sacrifice among Western democracies since World War II, but that's something that we have to be prepared to do for the good of the world, and also because we have got to repel Putin and this evil.
And just to add on to what Congresswoman Ross is saying, the United States has and continues to support our allies. We have lots of challenges here in the United States that we have to deal with, including our own southern border and sovereignty, as well as a lot of people who are experiencing economic hardship here as well. But I think my general view is that we are the leader of the free world, and we have an obligation to continue to lead. In the absence of leadership, there will be a void, and that void will be filled by nefarious actors. And so, you know, tomorrow's bill is, you know, but a first step. I think we need to continue to work between the United States and Moldova, our ambassadors, as well as our parliamentarians, our members of Congress, and President Sandu and the President of the United States, to really make sure that we are trying to address the challenges and build the partnership. Because I do think there are things that the U.S. can invest in Moldova to support it, to help it, and to strengthen the economic relationships, not just with the U.S., but with Europe. Obviously, as the EU candidacy continues down the path, that will help tremendously. I think Romania can play a critical role in continuing to advocate for Moldova. But there are a lot of opportunities ahead. It's going to take time. It's not going to be resolved overnight. But it is something where I do think the relationship can continue to strengthen, and we can find ways to be more helpful economically as well. And I think, you know, just when you look at some of the things that have been done, working with the U.S. to root out corruption, to put sanctions in place on some of the oligarchs, you know, and their funds that flow through the U.S., as well as, you know, trade possibilities, especially with Moldova's wine industry. And again, this is also where the diaspora here in the United States can play an important role, getting more engaged with your federal and state officials in your community, organizing, you know, more of an effort. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. I mean, that's the reality. And the communities that are best organized get in front of their elected leadership and force their elected leadership to take them seriously. Because they are a bloc and they work together and they make noise about the issues that matter. So that's part of it, and the diaspora can play a critical role as well.
Hello, my name is Valeriu Pasha. I represent here a CSO based in Moldova. It's called Watchdog Community Think Tank. And you just mentioned the sanctions on oligarchs. An important part of our work is monitoring and countering Russian disinformation. One of the biggest challenges in this regard in recent 7 to 10 months is sponsored toxic propaganda on social media, especially Meta controlled platforms, Facebook and Instagram. So during the recent local elections, just one fugitive oligarch, Ilan Shor, sponsored by Moscow, fueled something like $200,000 in sponsored posts on Facebook only in Moldova. This is like enormous money for social media marketing in such a small country. We have up to 1.2 million active users. He's under sanctions. There are other people under sanctions. For example, the fugitive oligarch Vyacheslav Platon, who is being sanctioned by Canada, also spends tens of thousands of dollars every month to promote toxic Russian narratives. In this condition, it's really hard to achieve any tangible results in our work, and it almost annihilates all the efforts, for example, of USA to support independent media or to support the work of organizations like ours. And we have crucial elections ahead. So if they were spending hundreds of thousands every month for local elections, which are not that important, we can imagine just how much Russia will pay for all this online propaganda during presidential and elections and referendum we have this year, and especially parliamentary elections next year. So from our experience, Meta is very much non-responsive. They don't want to take any actions. They even do not respond to the official requests of our legal authorities, which are making investigations of illegal funding of campaigns. So these companies, especially Meta, to a much smaller degree, Google with YouTube platform, they still work now as enablers of Russian influence. Both are American campaigns. So isn't it possible to deal anyhow with that?
So this is obviously something we're seeing even here in the United States, and concern about how social media platforms can be utilized to interfere with elections, how they can be utilized to promote propaganda. And it's part of the reason why in this bill tomorrow we're going to be banning TikTok basically by forcing a sale from China, from a Chinese company, to someone other than a Chinese company. Otherwise, within a year, they will be banned in the United States. And so I think part of it, and I met yesterday with Veronica Dragolin, the chief of the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. And part of it is in Moldova, making sure that the laws are adopted that need to be adopted with respect to some of the influence and how it can be utilized, and force these companies to operate within the law of Moldova. Secondarily, obviously, being able to trace and prosecute foreign funds that are used in elections. I have talked previously with the ambassador of Israel to the United States about Ilan Shor and the need for him to be brought back to Moldova, extradited to Moldova. And, you know, I think we need to continue to put pressure there. Obviously, Israel is a little occupied at the moment. But the objective is really to make sure that these individuals, these oligarchs that have used their wealth and their influence to engage in corruption in Moldova or interfere in elections are held accountable. I think in the United States, we certainly can work with the ambassador and Ambassador Ursu to try and hold Meta accountable and these social media platforms and make sure that they are doing everything they can to limit the ability to interfere.
I'll just answer, because I think Congressman Lawler's covered the kind of social media aspect of this, but I'll answer about winning elections and influencing elections. The most effective way to win people's hearts and minds and win an election is not necessarily through media or social media. It's through direct contact with people who you know and trust. And we absolutely need to find more ways to tamp down disinformation, corruption, hold corporations accountable. Absolutely. But the best antidote to that is person-to-person trusted communication in community settings. And one of the reasons why disinformation is so effective is because people are spending more time alone with their social media and their devices and less time in community, in churches, at work with people who they know, talking to their families. So while we deal with the corruption and the disinformation, let's redouble, triple, quadruple our person-to-person direct contact in order to get the right people elected and get those messages out. So I just want to put that on the table. During the pandemic, it was very difficult to do that because of the health concerns. But right now, what I'm talking about in our elections coming up, where the same kinds of things are going on, is being out in community, sharing, caring, and influencing people who are close to you.
My name is Ion Sturza. In 1999, I was Prime Minister of the Republic of Moldova and signed this agreement with North Carolina. And I remember this time, it was a great time. First military exercise, first exchange of real people. And behind of these ideas was, United States and Moldova is two different in size countries. It's very difficult. Of course, we can maintain formal relation between two states, but idea was to have a relation with small entity in United States. And I think today's results, it's a great example of how we can build this relation between small country and some region in America. And once again, thank you very much for people of North Carolina for the contribution. Thank you.
More questions?
One more question. Quick one.
No more questions. Just one. Yeah, I'll.
Thank you very much for being here. Sergio Kierman from Miami. Do you believe that some occupied territories of Ukraine are becoming or on their way to become a frozen conflict, not unlike Transnistria? And do you have a sense that a slow Moldovan military modernization stays in the way of Moldova's resolving the Transnistrian issue?
So I think it is hard to say at the moment with respect to Ukraine. Obviously, the objective is to have a positive resolution for Ukraine. My concern, certainly, if you look at obviously the Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014, is that there will continue to be some Russian presence, even in a negotiated settlement. And so, the objective to me is to make sure that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position, which is why they need the lethal aid, to ultimately have some type of negotiated settlement, barring Putin waking up and realizing that he's been wrong all this time, which, given his track record over 25 years, is unlikely. I am certainly concerned of this being some type of prolonged affair. I think from my vantage point and that of many of my colleagues, the administration, our administration, needs to be working towards a resolution here, as we provide the lethal aid that brings this conflict to an end, and keeps Ukrainian sovereignty. So that I think is critically important. With respect to Transnistria, like I said before, I think at the moment I don't see much changing there. I think the question really is, once we get resolution in Ukraine, what does that look like, and how does that impact the rest of the region? And then I think it'll be easier to figure out how to get resolution with Transnistria going forward.
The only thing I would add to that, because I think there was an aspect of your question that had to deal with how Moldova defends itself, and whether it should build up its defense capabilities. Obviously, North Carolina has the relationship with the National Guard, and there's no, the best offense is a good defense, and so I would say that deterrence, which has been pretty much the policy of the United States with respect to Russia and with respect to Vladimir Putin, is something he understands. And so I wouldn't ever suggest doing something offensively, but doing something defensively that makes Moldova less of what would be considered an easy target, is always a good idea.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Ross, Congressman Lawler. Thank you very much for joining us today. Also for your hard work and Moldova Caucus in Congress, and for your hard work on the Hill. We are all waiting for your vote tomorrow. Good luck to you, good luck to us, all of us, and thank you very much for joining us. We're very honored. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take a short break, 15 minutes break. Communicate, enjoy this wonderful room. Admire the ceiling. These are 19th century hand-painted silk goblins. Enjoy the 15 minutes, and we expect you to be here at 3 p.m. Thank you. The life is going to go on, so please enjoy.